Hi, and welcome to the next episode of my tutorials on the Kurzweil Forte 7 or 8 stage piano, workstation or synthesizer. Today I will just give you a few hints and tips to start with the Forte, a few tricks and a few workflow options that you have. The first thing I would highly recommend is to play in multi-mode live. So program mode for programming sounds, multi-mode for playing live. Especially if you play with external synthesizers or sound modules, or if you want to switch the Forte with an iPad with an app like SETLIST Maker or Band Helper or ForceCore or something like this. Because if you want to switch from multi to program from an iPad, you have to mess around with SYSEX, which can be pretty hard. If you stick to multi-mode, you just need ordinary program changes, which makes it a lot easier. Also in multi-mode, you have full control over your controllers and over the effects, which makes the life a lot easier, especially when dealing with external synthesizers or sound modules. I would recommend to set up a template multi. I did it where all the controllers are switched off, all the effects are switched off, to start with a clean sheet when you start building up a new multi. I will include my clear template in the description of this video. One more thing to consider if you're working with multi-templates is that you leave yourself a bit of a headroom for sounds that are not so loud. So my standard volume is 100 and not 127. So if you have a piano, pianos are quite loud, they have a very high dynamic range, and you want to have a string, for example, that is louder than the piano, then it's very difficult to get it louder if the piano is on 127. And if you do it consistently with a template for all of your multis, then you can balance the multis, the volumes of the multis better together. So I recommend to standardly go to 100, maybe even to 90 as you like it. But that's a tip from me to work with multis. One thing that took me quite a while to get is that in program mode, you map MIDI CCs to parameters, internal parameters, and in multi-mode, you map the physical controllers to those CCs. This is a basic understanding which took me quite a while to get. One thing to know when working with controllers, for example, if we go to multi-mode, edit, controls, where you set up all the controls, and for example, you want to adjust what slider I does. So you have to go through the list, or you press enter, wiggle the slider, and the Forte jumps to that page. This accords to all menus where controllers are involved and speeds up the programming a lot. The next thing I want to show you is search by string. So if there are any names involved, like in program mode, programs, in multi-mode, multis, or effects chains, whatever, you can always search by string by pushing the enter button and one of the numbers. Enter 1. Let's search a piano. And it shows you the next program with piano in it. If you do it again, it shows you the next, and so on. This works with any objects that have names. One thing when programming the Forte, for example in program mode, program edit mode, and you're dealing with modulation sources, like LFOs, envelopes, whatsoever, then you can dial in a number which represents one of the sources. 116 is LFO2, followed by fronts, envelopes, and so on. If you use those numbers regularly, you will remember it and navigate the Forte much quicker than with just scrolling all the time. One thing a lot of users ask is how do I import user samples and make keymaps with it? The easiest way is to use Kurzweil on a computer. It's a free program on the Mastering Vast board. You find it in the web. Do all the cutting inside of the computer, import it to the Kurzweil, and build a keymap with it. It automatically creates an object that the Forte can read. One thing with Kurzweil is it can compact the keymap, which means that instead of making an object for every sample, an individual object, it compacts them to one object, which makes it a lot easier to handle it inside of the Forte. You can also use programs like Extreme Sample Converter or Sample Robot, just make waves out of it, just waveforms, and you can import it to Kurzweil to make a KEYMAP on the computer. One funny thing I found out is that on the bottom of the Forte there is a small channel, like here, through the whole length of the Forte. I don't know what it's meant to be, but I use it to guide my cables to the side of the Forte. So I use it as a cable channel. It's really usable. I don't know if they meant it like that. I don't care actually. One thing you have to consider is that the Forte has a graded hammer action. So on the high registers, high velocities are triggered easier than on the low registers. So when you move a zone in multimode from the top to the bottom and transpose it so that you play the same as you played on the top, then it will react slightly different on the bottom. Just to consider, maybe you have to make it louder or adjust the velocity curve. It's just a little bit, but sometimes it can make a difference. Another thing that users were asking for is that the LED letters are quite bright on stage. So the standard mode was not this partial mode, where you just have the single LED, but the complete mode. And if you're here like this, then on stage it's pretty bright. So I stick to partial mode, where just one single LED is lit. One thing a lot of users ask for are the PC3 and Core 64 programs for the Forte. You can have them. It's not that difficult. I will include the links to that in the description of the video. A lot of users ask for SOUNDSETS or user patches or something like this. Go to the Facebook group, there are user patches there, as well as on the KSETLIST, which is a very nice homepage with user patches, mainly for the PC3, but they're all compatible with the Forte. And you could hook up to Kurzweil.com, Kurzweil released patches, and they also have a list of all the commercial SOUNDSETS there are. And they are quite a lot actually. So that's all for the first tips and tricks for the Forte to get a good workflow and to get started with it. I hope you liked it. See you next time. Bye.